right, so Spud, it's 2 days before Christmas. What are you expecting from Santa?
I didn't ask for that. I don't know. Jesus, I wasn't ready for this at all, Tommy. You caught me on the hop. You know what?
Peace on earth, goodwill to all men.
Peace on earth, goodwill, happiness and all.
Goodwill to all men, nothing to women.
Herself was stressing the other day about, like, because Polish Christmas is quite intense. You have to have 12 dishes on Christmas Eve, and none of them involve meat. It's fish only, and but anyway, one for each apostle or something like that. I think that's what.
Oh, no way! Oh,
and Polish Christmas is very, very strange because depending on what part of the country you're in, a different entity brings you a present. So it can be Santa Claus, it can be baby Jesus, it can be an angel, it can be Frost Man, and it can be the star. Did I say the star already? Yeah. So five different entities depending on where you live. And where I live, it's baby Jesus. And where my parents-in-law live, it's Father Frost or Mr. Iceman.
Right.
It's strange. I'd rather have Santa Claus, to be honest. But see, Santa Claus comes on the 6th of December when you send your letter to... You ask Santa for presents, and he gives you something on the 6th of December, but then Jesus
that's
brings
women's
it.
Christmas, isn't it?
He's the go-between. No, that's 6th of January, isn't it?
Oh, is
4th
it?
of January, 6th of January. Yeah, so anyway, she was stressing out about the food, and she was going, and I just went, look, it's grand. It's the four of us. We're going to have a lovely Christmas. If we want to just eat fucking pizza, we'll eat pizza. It's grand. I just want a happy, nice, lovely Christmas and peace and goodwill to everyone. And I like Christmas because everyone's just that little bit nicer to each other.
Yeah, to a point. And then there's massive rows and everyone hates each other. So, I mean, there's that. I want to just get back to this thing that baby Jesus brings you a present.
Yeah.
Does he bring a present that in some way also teaches you a lesson about Christianity, or is it like a tractor?
Oh, no. It's a toy. It's whatever. Right. Actually, let me just get it up here because I put it on. Where did I put it on? I put it on Twitter, I think. Let me just make sure I have this right. So many of my fucking Twitter is football. I'd say anyone who was into like woo-woo stuff that follows me is just like, you're an idiot. You're probably like that with football, are you?
I have 90% of Twitter muted, so I'm sure football is one of my keywords.
Similar, I suppose. Yeah, so here it is. So you have Santa Claus, Gwiazdor. That sounds pretty cool. I think he's...
It's like a Flash Gordon bad guy.
He's Starman. Here's a Starman. And then you have...
Oh, no, we can't stop. YouTube will take us then. no unlicensed music.
Oh, really? And then you have... So you have Santa Claus, Starman, Star... the Holy Child, so Jesus. Oh, an angel. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Jadek Mrush, which is like Grandad Frost. So.
All right.
Yeah, I like the sound of Grandad Frost and
like
Starman. I like the sound of those two the best, but like getting something off an angel would be pretty crappy.
I don't know, man. Angels are like the most astonishing beings that you're ever meant to meet. They're meant to be like absolutely awe. You know, in the proper sense of awe, which is why the very first thing they always say to you is, "Don't be afraid. It's fine. I'm terrifying, but don't be afraid." So I know.
Yeah, see, I don't know what you're going
If an angel arrived and wants to give you a present, historically, it's really bad news. So.
Oh, is it? Yeah. That's my kind of thinking. And as well, like, I mean, you think of angels, I have to think of like Matt Damon and what's his friend in Dogma.
Oh, and Dogma, yeah. And Ben Affleck. No.
Yeah, and you know, all those shows with like fallen angels who come down and they're just like,
have
humans
you seen
are
Prophecy?
stupid. Yeah.
The film's Prophecy with Christopher Walken.
No, they good?
Oh, the first one's, well, I mean, it's exactly the film, you know already what the film is, like it's fallen angels and all that.
Okay.
But the first one's really good, but there's 3 of them, and, you know, it gets subsequently terrible as it goes on, but it gets so bad that the 3rd one's probably the best one because it's just so bad.
One of them, okay.
Yeah.
I get you.
But it's definitely the first one's worth watching. Anyway, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, not ahead of ourselves, too far away from ourselves, this week we're talking about control, Spud. And how we're probably being controlled by all these outside forces, and that, I suppose, ultimately, how do we know that any of our thoughts or beliefs that we have about the world or ourselves are anyway true? So,
Happy Christmas!
A simple topic, an easy one, just to, have a little chat about.
Happy Christmas! It's a tough one, isn't it? Because, of course, everyone's had thoughts on this. And I think I used to listen to Sam Harris's podcast a lot. I don't listen anymore now because it's just a whine fest. But
Yeah.
but it was his thoughts on free will that I was like, yeah, I know that's exactly what I've been thinking. Free will is. It's just total illusion. It's not real, and it's all like your body already knows what it's going to do before you decide in inverted commas. You know, like
Okay. Yeah.
and then. But then you're kind of looking down the road. Then is everything predestined, and that would be like or predetermined. That's like a Calvinist kind of Protestant idea, you know. And then it's like, well, what's the point?
Well, they took it and really went with it, but it's
well,
like
yeah. But you know what I mean?
Idea,
That's like coming from kind of our kind of Christian background in Ireland. That's where we would have first heard of this, like. Growing up in Ireland, it's like, well, you have to be good because you'd be rewarded in the next life. Whereas the Calvinists are like, well, I mean, it's already set out in front of you anyway. So just like, just do what you're going to do and you'll go to heaven if God already liked you. Oh, okay. Huh. Yeah. Right. Which is mad.
Yeah, and I suppose the Jehovah's Witnesses have that as well, kind of a thing, that it's already been determined who the 114, I think, 1,000.
144,000.
144,000, that's it. Yeah. People who are getting into heaven. And the rest get to spend eternity on Earth.
They used to annoy the shit. They used to annoy the shit. They used to target my house in the last city I was living in because they had this thing about trying to recruit foreigners, and it was it was awful. They kept coming up to the intercom. It was like once a month, once every 6 weeks there for a long time. And eventually I just lost the plot on the intercom and just said, "No, I'm Irish. Pedophiles, fuck off. No, I want nothing to do with religion." And about 2 or 3 weeks later, then the boss of the Jehovah's for the area came on the intercom and he was like, "No, man, I had to come and see if everything was all right and talk to him." I'm like, "Oh, for fuck's sake.
Go away.
All right, come upstairs." He's like, So
the
anyway.
first time that I had the Jehovah's Witnesses here, the first time he came around, he just came around under the guise, I think I was telling you this before, of just doing some sort of survey. I was going, just a guy at the door doing a survey. And then, like 3 weeks later, he was arriving. Oh, that was my job, and now I'm here as a Jehovah's Witness. And I go, I'm not buying that.
Okay.
But
anyway,
there's
look,
arguing with these people, though.
No, there's no point. But like, you know what? I just be nice to them now because there's no point. What's the point in being mean to anyone anyway? You know what I mean? Whatever, it's their choice. But look,
I was never mean to them, but I did try to actually debate them over certain things. And the best thing you can ever debate a Christian with is when you actually quote the Bible at them, because they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? They really go, no.
Well,
but it's...
I don't know. I'd have to then disagree with you there because my uncle's a priest and I've often tried and failed miserably to take him on in arguments. I always lose with him.
Ask him what the deal is with Leviticus, and how God's all right with slaves. He's all right with animal sacrifice and human sacrifice. What's going on there?
The one I like to annoy people with is the one about the two things: you can't eat shellfish, and then you can't mix fabrics, because they blow my mind. Like, what kind of religion doesn't want you to eat shellfish? Or mix fabrics.
The shellfish you can understand because probably a load of people got sick from eating shitty shellfish, and and there's that whole kind of so you can go, well, that's maybe a dietary type of
Yeah, well then why didn't they just say you can't eat non-fresh shellfish?
Because people are, I don't know, maybe they were going, we can't get fresh stuff. Maybe there was a lack of fresh shellfish. And it's just a blanket ban on all shellfish. And that pig meat, that's dodgy too. Like, so, I don't know. But and maybe there is something about the cloth thing. You can't have two fabrics. Maybe it's itchy, or it's causing some sort of epidemic of rashes or something. And people just don't do that, man. Don't do that. It's the slave stuff and the second class women and the homophobia. I think that's more the issue than shellfish and
for you it is, Tommy.
I would hope for most people it is. Anyway, to bring this kind of round a bit to what we're, I suppose, meant to be talking about.
Yeah.
At the end of the last episode, we talked about this documentary called Century of the Self, which is an Adam Curtis documentary from 2002. And it was done by the BBC, and it's a 4-part extravaganza of, oh my God, the world is shit, and this is unbelievable. But I just want to preface all of this conversation is that this podcast is not a review of documentary podcasts. It just so happened that this is the starting point of where we kind of went with this week. So what did you think of the documentary? Being that it's not a review of the documentary.
I found it very sad, to be honest. So it's based on what's his name? Edward Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Yeah.
And so he took Sigmund Freud's ideas that were all, we're all kind of how to explain it quickly. Humans,
human beings are inherently irrational, and that you have to control this irrationality in them, or go mental.
And we were debased as well, and we're just chaotic, and so he took these ideas and put them into a kind of a PR, public relations, and then marketing kind of spin, and he kind of discovered how to sell. He was the one who discovered how to sell things to people, not based on them needing them, but based on them wanting them. Which to us in these times of consumerism, that's like, well, yeah, it's obvious. Yeah, but back then it wasn't. Like, you just bought shoes back then when you needed them. You didn't have 15 pairs of shoes, And
and it's hard to think of a world not like that. That you just bought shoes because you needed shoes, not because.
Yeah, I mean, does this mean that like everyone in 1899 was far happier than what we are now? Before this fucker came along.
Well, I think it was probably more of a thing of that it wouldn't have been questioned. It wouldn't have been that whether, like, even that question of are you happy, I doubt was a question the majority of people actually had up until very recently, because because you were more, I think, I don't know, but I assume you were more concerned with survival than, am I happy? Am I fuck?
I suppose she was, I was talking about arranged marriages there with the wife a while ago. Seeing as, my dad gave her dad 17 horses so I could have her.
As is right. I write and correct.
Right. It was the going price at the time. No, but like so much of the world is still like that. There's still a lot of that going on. And that didn't happen in my parents' generation, but it would have happened in their parents' generation. It's not that long ago. Like, nobody married for love. There was no happiness. And even you think of wars and stuff like that. Like, there was this huge sense of duty when there was a war. Like, you went to war because you believed in the right of your king or the right of your country. Like, nowadays you're like, what? I'm not going to war for that, dickhead.
Well, you say that, but the biggest power in the world still thinks that way. And the second biggest power, who will be the biggest power, also thinks that way. So you have China and America, who very much are still in that kind of fight for your country, your flag, your all of this
the Americans a bit different. The American army's made up a lot of second generation immigrants now.
Okay.
A lot, and they're just this kind of cements their Americanisms, American national.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? So but back to the program. It was just I think I messaged you in the first 10 or 15 minutes just going, man, this is fierce depressing or something. I said, because it's just you realize how the show shows you how easily people are manipulated. And, well, I suppose here's a question then for these days. Are we as easily manipulated, do you think, as we were 100 years ago, yeah?
Absolutely. To not think we are is kind of naive, I think, and I don't mean that in the kind of when people go, you're naive, as if I'm any better. I completely am. I'm as naive as anyone. The whole Facebook thing, and I'm not talking about the Cambridge Analytics or the leaks or the privacy. Fine, that's an issue. Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they came out and said, we tried to make people depressed to see what would happen, or we sent them only bad news for 6 months and had a look at what happened to them. That's fucking weird and wrong.
It's horrific.
It's horrific, absolutely horrific. And kind of it came out in the news and people went, that's what? That's horrifying. And but the other thing is, what can you do? What's the answer to that? You can stop using Facebook, which I'm trying my best to do. But then you're on Twitter and then you're on Reddit and you're going, well, is it any different?
No.
It's just Facebook, it has the most attention because it has probably, because your mom uses it. My mom doesn't use Reddit, you know what I mean? And thank God, the depraved areas of Reddit that my mum would be subjected to, I don't think.
How bad is your mom on Facebook? My mom's awful on Facebook.
My mum is great on Facebook. She lurks and doesn't talk to anyone.
Oh, well, my mom's awful. She puts she comments under my mates would put up baby photos or something. And they're not like my Irish mates who like she might actually know. They're like mates, they're mates here who like she might have met once or twice, and she puts comments on their photos like, "Oh, she's such a lovely, gorgeous sweetie," and it's like, man, shut the fuck up, will you? You don't know these people, like, you fucking weirdo. Stop
She's been
it.
friendly. She's been social.
No, I
How dare
know,
you.
but now I shouldn't be mean to her. Love me, ma. But I think that's kind of, for me, that's overstepping a kind of boundary there, isn't it?
Well, it is if it was on the street. But it's a social space of where it's totally allowed. It's totally, you're allowed to talk to people about their private affairs, of people you've never met and have no kind of idea how you initially made any sort of contact. Or, it's like, how, some people you have friends on Facebook for years ago, well, how exactly do I know you? How do you go, like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we met on the internet, like, so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
Look, a good portion of my Facebook friends are all from like the previous comedy podcast they have. It's loads and loads of stand-up comedians who hopefully I'll get to see eventually one day in Dublin or in Ireland performing, but I probably won't,
Yeah.
But Andy, look, Edward Bernays, like I was so taken by how devious and smart this guy was, but in like a really bad kind of like a Rupert Murdoch kind of way. He's like an evil genius. So like he.
But the difference, I think, just to interrupt, is that I don't think he had his own agenda. He was doing it all for money, and also nearly the challenge or just to show off or something like. With people like Murdoch say, and I don't know enough about him to really, but from what I understand. Had his own agenda, possibly, had his own, view of the world, wanted to mould it in his own image, all of this type of stuff. Whereas Bernays seems to have done it more, I suppose, in, kind of like the madman sense of just to be good at it, rather than
I think, well, my take from it is that he really took on Sigmund Freud's teachings and went, right, people are idiots, I'm going to screw them and I'm going to make a fortune. And he didn't particularly have any thirst for power. He didn't want to be a politician or a president or anything like that. He just wanted to make money off of how stupid people are. It's
and I don't even think it was the money. I think it's like getting not one over on them, but like the money was kind of, it seemed to me, a kind of a side thing of it. I don't think that was his motivation. Like I think he was the type of guy. From the 40 minutes I spent with him on the documentary, my deep insight on him is, I think he would have done it. Had he not? Well, maybe not, but I assume that was in him to do.
I suppose it's kind of the thing about psychopaths, isn't it? They have this thing about wanting to manipulate people and things like that. There was a really interesting quote to start it, and it said, "By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, you make them happy and docile."
Well, but the happiness thing, but it's only by being part of the process. There's an interesting thing that happens. Just skimming along, and we're going to go forward and back in the documentary, that it starts off with going from people, buying stuff that they need to full out commercialism where they buy stuff that they now want, but starts by you telling them what they want.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of a backlash where it's people want to have, well, now I've decided that things define who I am, and that I'm a type of person who, I'm a Dapper Dan guy, or whatever is the thing that I drive this particular car. So rather than being told what they want, they kind of have their own kind of idea. Well, I'm going to find things that
Apple,
define
Tommy.
me.
It's Apple. Apple are the biggest at this at the minute.
Exactly that.
Definitely
that
Apple.
Defines me as a person.
Yeah. I am an Apple guy, yeah.
But even at that point, what they discovered, those powers that be, that you could still put people in categories. No matter how they decided they were unique, how they defined themselves through different things, they could still go, yeah, we have you. By a 30 question now, could put people in these, what I think it was lifestyle choices or something like that. LALs, lifestyle, whatever it was they had. And they could completely and utterly, even with them thinking they're the most unique people, counterculture people, by definition, going against the thing, we're still falling into the same boxes or definable boxes. And you could then, then they were saying that the Reagan and Thatcher and stuff, like how they approached the elections at the beginning of the 80s was due to this type of thing, that they were going to a particular sect of people who don't exist in a sense. Like they were saying, it's not monetary, it's not location, it's not level of education. It's not race. It's not sex. It's just grouping them together by how they define themselves and how they see the world. And by appealing to that kind of, and I think Reagan's one is, I'm going to get the government off your back. I'm going to get the man off your back. Vote for me.
Fucking Ronald Reagan, like.
The man.
It's crazy. It's like there was a guy on.
The man.
there was a guy on. I was listening to James O'Brien. He's he's one of the anti-Brexit kind of DJs and talk radio people. I think it was him. He was interviewing some guy, and he was saying that like he couldn't vote. He's from a traditionally Labour background, and a proper working class area. Worked in the mines and all this kind of stuff. And he was saying that this was the first time that he couldn't vote for Labour because the elites, he couldn't vote for the elites. And he's like, and so the interview went on, and like he trapped them. James O'Brien's very good at this. He's trapping people into where he wants them to go. And he says at the end of the interview, then, so who did you vote for? And he's, I vote for the Conservatives and Boris Johnson. It's like, what?
But this is it. I mean, Brexit's a great example of control and about like how manipulation, how basically the side of a bus changed the entire country. Like, that.
Oh look, there was a great. What the hell was I listening to the other day? The podcast I was telling you about before, the Irish fella, Williams, David McWilliams.
Yes,
he interviewed someone who had worked with Cambridge Analytica, and she was saying that during Trump's campaign, they did something like 500 million Facebook ads, something like that.
Wow.
Whereas Hillary Clinton only did 50,000. And it was all targeted on like different aspects of like, like if you were kind of a rebellious person, then you would get a certain Facebook ad for Trump. If you were a more kind of docile, kind of normal conservative, then you get a different Trump ad. Whereas if you were a Democrat, then you were just getting the same Hillary Clinton ad across the board. So it's crazy, like how targeted.
And I mean, and that sounds like politics and all that, and that's manipulation, all that. But Netflix do it. Netflix will show you a different poster for the film, going by what you've, than I get, going by the different things you've watched. So
that's mad.
It's like all levels. It's like and then you have to think, and this is the thing that's most horrifying to me, and it's a thing that we kind of touched on in the last podcast, is like, we can see this, and we can, that we can see it, and we can kind of, to a sense, understand it, and it's open and it's there. What are the things that we don't know about? What is the kind of control systems or the manipulation that we have no idea about? And the reason why I'm saying it comes back to what we were talking about last week when I asked the question, if an alien came down and had a look around and goes, was there something blaringly obvious to them about how we run our lives that we can't see at all? And we come up with music, and I think that is a good answer, but that's more of a positive, spiritual, that everything is great.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably some stuff where they'll just go, you should see this. You don't see what's going on here. Money is probably it. Money is probably it, but
like you have to watch this program and just be like, right, well, it's changed that quickly in 100 years. Like, what's it going to be like in 100 years' time? There's no way this can continue, can it? Consumerism can't continue like this. Well,
that was the big question at the beginning of it, like the Edward Bernays at the very beginning were going, well, what happens if people run out of things they want to buy? And very quickly they discovered, well, they won't if you put in the redundancy. This is why washing machines only last 5 years now, not even that, because they're designed to fall apart. Books are designed to fall apart, which is, how dare you? How dare you? You know what I mean? But that's it. So like, I mean, it's not, they can't, when you ask a question, well, it can't go on like this. It can if your computer has a life of 5 years and needs to get a new one, or your car.
No. But I don't necessarily mean the buy-in of stuff. I mean, how long can it be before people realize, like, Jesus, we've been hoodwinked for the last 100 years. Like, it's time to cop on.
Well, that documentary's from 2002, so all of it put together for nearly 20, close to 20 years. A whole adult has been born and can now drink in Ireland, not in the States. But
what's crazy as well is that, like, I mean, to blow my own horn here, Tommy, I think I'd be fairly clued into stuff. I have a good interest in a lot of things, and I've never heard of this fucker. Never heard of him. And I even studied PR in college. I did a
You heard of
semester
them,
PR.
enough that you knew that there was something to do with Freud's nephew.
Yeah, I knew it
Like,
was
you did
something to do
mention
with
that.
Freud, but that's all.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't really go into how fucking insidious this bastard was, you know?
Yeah.
And like, okay, like it sounds like a bit like, you know, if you're being objective here and you listen to us, you're just like, yeah, but look, it's just kind of marketing, really, at one sense. But in the second episode, it goes into like how his kind of tactics and not you wouldn't say teachings, but how his tactics and his influence were
approach.
used in like his approach, how they were used by like the CIA, and like it started a fucking civil war in Guatemala and stuff.
Oh yeah, the
you know?
Banana Republic, and we know that Banana Republic, and I wasn't 100% sure on what that actually was, other than the you know some sort of Boomtown Rats reference. But like, I mean, that's unbelievable that the top of the country, a government, basically caused a civil war because a fruit company wasn't getting to sell their fruit. You know what I mean? And like that's
No, it wasn't that even. It was like it's like if how to put it into modern kind of terms. It's like okay, so where most of your listeners will be what, American or Irish or American, aren't they?
who knows? Western.
Right. Okay. So let's just say at the minute there's been this kind of pressure with the Irish government about Facebook, because Facebook is in Ireland and pays very, very little tax, if any at all, and it funnels all of its European Union profits through Ireland and pays almost nothing to it. So imagine,
But
right?
Fair is fair. So does Amazon. So does Google.
Oh
so
yeah,
does
there's
PayPal.
loads.
All this. Yeah. YouTube.
I'm just picking
They're all the same
Facebook because
company.
they're nasty, you know. So
Yeah.
let's just imagine that there was a new prime minister who won an election in Ireland, saying, "We don't like what Facebook are doing. We're going to take over Facebook and make sure that they commit to our laws." Okay, this is exactly the same as what happened in Guatemala with the fruit company. So then the fruit company or Facebook set up this completely fake news agency and started bombarding the European and American press, saying that there's civil unrest in Ireland, there are pro-communist forces coming to the fore, and they're going to take over and they're going to kill Americans, and that's exactly what happened. And then it led to a civil war, just because this Edward Bernays guy was helping the fruit company not get kicked out of Guatemala, even though they were breaking tons and tons of laws and being general tossbags. No.
With your reference of Facebook, not only thing is Facebook already is its own made-up news.
Well, yeah.
Conglomerate.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to set up a new one. It already
No.
has it. But that's the question that I come out. That my concern and my worry is like the people who were in America at the time. I assume felt it was their patriotic duty to you know they definitely felt that this was a threat. They weren't kind of feeling they thought people were going to come up from as they still do now, but Mexico, it's the same kind of thing, and come and take away whatever it is they have, whatever. What is it? What are the things that are happening that aren't as obvious as that? What are the things that are going on in the world that we, as are the equivalent now? What are we being told? What are we being fed? What is it that who are the people we hate? Who are the people we are scared of? That that's the lie, that the equivalent lie now. And I mean, there has to be. There's no question about it that in my mind that there is these things going on now.
Look, it'd have to be. I have a good interest in politics, and I think from looking outside at what happened in the last election there in Britain, it's obvious to everyone outside of Britain that propaganda won that. And I don't know if people living in Britain have really realised how bad the propaganda is where they're living. Like, we're on the outside so we can look in and see it, and we're like fucking morons. But like, they're living there going like, "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn's an elitist." What are you on about? He's a communist. He's not an elitist. That's like the opposite. But anyway, like, this is just an example.
But my thing is to say that everyone, we're on the inside of it, and someone else is looking. Like, no matter who you are, to think that you are not.
Yeah.
In a bubble.
I wouldn't think that there would be one kind of thing. I'd say it's very much a kind of east versus west kind of wherever your influence lies. It's kind of like, in the West we're taught, like particularly where I am in Poland, like Putin is this horrible, really terrible ogre who, but like if you cross the border into Ukraine where it's pro-Russian, then they don't have that image of him at all. Like, Jesus, there was a thing the other day about Stalin was remembered. And some big anniversary party was put on for him, and like people on Twitter are just having a meltdown over how could you? But like I have friends who have been to Georgia on holidays, and he's a national hero
Yeah.
in Georgia because that's where he was from, and they're like, yeah, but like we don't really know how many people he killed, and he only killed his enemies. Oh right, okay.
All right, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Plus as well. I've been reading a bit on Stalin, and you know the way they say that, like, Stalin killed like 4 times what Hitler killed. Like that's not
Sure.
true at all. It's
Oh, okay,
just not
okay.
true, and it's been found out that it's been sourced back to the original guy who wrote this, and it's been shown, like, it's only recently it's been shown as actually bullshit. Like, we don't know how many we don't know how many Stalin killed, but it's not like 4 times what Hitler did. It's pretty
Right.
obviously it's bad. I'm not standing up for him
yeah.
here, but it's not that propaganda thing that we've been told,
Yeah.
So I don't
that-
think, Tommy, to get back to your question, I don't think that there's
Yeah.
one thing that we're not being told. I think there's so many kind of factions around the world where you're under the influence of that kind of sphere,
Yeah, like we're definitely in the Western lie, if
Yeah.
you want, a bubble or whatever, and then
Yeah.
there's separate little bubbles within it. It's an interesting one though. They're talking about Russia, and I remember reading years ago that his kind of PR guy, or his propaganda, as he'd be all right using it, I suppose. His kind of thing, what he came out and said is that the whole thing is to discombobulate people, is to have them confused about what the truth is, and this is certainly what the landscape we are in now, in that. It's divide and conquer and all this thing, but it makes you that you have no idea what is true. In the sense of, you see all this kind of pop science journalism, where this week toast gives you cancer, next week toast cures you of cancer, or this has been done, vitamin E is great, no, vitamin E is bad, and this kind of both sides always playing against each other, but it's all in a sense that you go, well, I don't have a fucking clue what's going on. And it's like, why do people believe in conspiracies? Well, because the government in general lies an awful lot anyway. But it's then you can't believe the government, you can't believe the conspiracies, you can't believe the news, you can't believe your own opinion, because we're also told that, anecdotal evidence is useless. Your own kind of, your own sense of truth is completely false. And we can prove that because we can have an incident with 20 people and you get 20 different stories.
Yeah.
So there's a truth in all this, but it comes then to the end of that. You have no idea what's true or what opinion to have, or, and you're just kind of like, if you actually sit there and think about it, you can kind of go, right, what can I do about it? You know what I mean? What can I do? And what happens is that people have no sense of their own authority or their own sovereignty or autonomy. And I know they're new things to people as well. Like, part of commercialism and capitalism is there's this kind of sense of self that we didn't probably have before. So that's I suspect why the documentary is called The Century of the Self, because it's, it's kind of, there's that good joke in the middle of it where it goes, where people become more concerned about themselves, and become very socialist kind of feeling about themselves. And when everyone is an individual socialist, what you have is capitalism. So it's an interesting thing. But what gets me, there's a further thing I want to get into this kind of idea with you, and bringing it a bit more into the woo. And this is the idea of no self. And originally I came across it in Buddhist texts, and it's this idea that when you're meditating and you start realizing the different thoughts that are going through your mind, the different kind of things, you start seeing them, or you should approach them as if they're the same as a smell or a touch or a taste, a sense, not who you are exactly. It's not who you are, it's just a part, another sense, it's another kind of thinking, is, the same as smelling or whatever, not to be confused with yourself, because you wouldn't think, oh, I smell coffee, I am coffee, but you would think, I feel angry. I know it's thinking and emotions, but the same type of thing. So this whole idea of no self. Now, the Buddhists, certain sects of Buddhists would say that behind all that is nothing. There's no individual I. There's no kind of, some say there's a void, some say there's some sort of awareness, all of this kind of thing. But then you have kind of people like David Hume, which was a philosopher from 1700s, I don't know, 1600s, something like that. And he had this kind of idea. He was the first kind of really openly atheist philosopher. Because up until then, you couldn't be. You just kind of had to skirt around it. But he came up with this thing, and it's kind of like the bundle idea, the bundle theory. We're nothing more than a collection of ideas that we've taken from other people, that we have some deliberately. You know, like you admire someone, so you take on a bit of their personality or their kind of traits. Some unconsciously, so say you're a miser because your dad was a miser, or the things that you just kind of have come on you because of the nurture
Conditioning,
element
like yeah.
And then he would say that behind all of that and these things, again, there is nothing there. There's no one there. And it's interesting that you have people like Daniel Dennett, who would be a kind of he's a philosopher, I suppose, but he'd be part of the four horsemen of the apocalypse in the Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, that documentary, if you've ever seen it, The Round Table. He's one of them. And he would have the approach of, again, that consciousness is just an epiphenomena of the brain, which just basically means that it's a byproduct of the brain. As the brain is your body trying to survive, and this consciousness kind of emerged out of it as a thing that kind of happened along with it. But again, not real, not a type of thing. And so then, this has been sitting with me on and off for a while, but it's really come to kind of on my mind since I started doing the therapy, and I've been really doing, proper introspection and looking at it. And there's a thing I did a couple of weeks ago where I sat down and I looked at all my personality traits, good and bad, and I could pinpoint exactly where all of them came from. And the scary bit is when you get to the end of whatever, there's no original thought there, and you can't really go, well, there's adaptation of other people's thoughts, there's kind of evolvement of other people's thoughts, but you still know where the core of what your belief is came from there, from that book, from that person, your sense of humor and all of these type of things. And that's weird because when you look at your kids, you can kind of think that they seem to have their own little personality too. But if it's true that there's nothing behind it, then that means they're getting that from day one up, straight away, and forming these things that's all around you and all of these things. So when it comes to bring it back to what we're actually talking about, the social kind of conditioning that we have, the natural ones we get from our parents, from our friends growing up and all of this kind of things, it forms you into the person. And that's kind of haphazard. So then when you have people coming along who are deliberately kind of coercing you and putting you into a type of thoughts or ideas about the world and all that on a deliberate effort, that it turns out it's really easy to do. So the question then at the end of it is, what the fuck are we? Who are we? What is the thing? Because when you look at it closely, there doesn't seem to be a thing behind Tommy. And that is it's a stage of thought, philosophical thought, particularly in meditation and stuff like that. But it's kind of, in one way, horrifying, but in another way, there's a weight off my mind. Literally. And it's type of thing. I'm interested in, what's your kind of...
No, I know, and yeah, look, I because I haven't read them, but I've listened to a good few of them by now. The whole reality transurfing thing,
Yeah.
And I like it. I think could be very useful, but it's not much fucking use to me when every weekend my 1-year-old daughter puts wet wipes down my toilets and blocks up the sewer, and I have to take up the pump and go through that and unblock it, and I'm wading through shit. It's all well and good to have these...
It depends on how woo you want to go with the reality transurfing. There is a point where they would say you are, that's a pattern. So it's your pattern, it's a loop. It's a thing that's happening. So there's either, whatever way you want to look, there's either a lesson that you're missing, there's kind of something, or there's a role you're playing that you had, in a sense, some sort of, it's a false conclusion that you've drawn about the world, that this is why it's a repeating pattern in your life. That's all depending on how woo you want to go with the whole thing. But
she's still putting wet wipes down my toilet though, and I still have to.
But this is the thing, because there's the kind of trap.
No, Tommy. No, I think you're getting my point wrong. What I mean is that and it's not being facetious or anything like that. But it's that, okay, we can have all these deep thoughts and maybe we are nothing and stuff like that. But at the same time, if you walk out in front of a car, you're still going to shit your pants kind of thing. You know what I mean? I still think there's an instinctual kind of lizard brain or something.
Oh, sure, but that's kind of is the conclusion. But that you are nothing more than instinct and stimulus response, and
Yeah.
that you have, like, say, when you get angry, you're not really getting angry. You're playing a recording of being angry.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and it's kind of, and you can sometimes find yourself in the middle of that where you kind of go, you're screaming at your wife or something about, I don't know, milk. And you go, there's part of you bring up, what are you on about? You don't give a shit about milk.
Yeah.
You don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But you're still doing it.
You know
You're
what?
there going, milk.
This is something I've noticed thanks to the transurfing thing, is that I'm not getting angry or annoyed anymore a lot more about stuff. Because now when an argument kind of starts, and if it's worth it, or if it's something that is important, then I'll keep going. But if it's like, look, it doesn't matter. Sorry. Forget about it. Doesn't matter. And then she actually stops in her tracks because she's not used to it. You know? And it's not that like I'm giving up on the fight. I'm just like, you know what, actually, because in my head I'm just going, man, that doesn't matter. And it doesn't. Yeah. So, but like, I don't know.
But ultimately, the point is that none of it matters. That's the thing to get to.
None of it does matter. It's a whole existential
But not
thing.
in the. But not, I don't like not in the spiritual bypassing way, which is the idea that you kind of ignore suffering. I don't mean it in that way. You know, like what people would say, oh, starving children in Africa, that's obviously part of their spiritual evolution and they've chosen to become here. Fuck off, right? That's not it. That's not when you say, oh, we're not real. It's a fault of words, of semantics. We don't have the words for these things. It is real. Of course it's real. Your kid is still putting the wet wipes down the toilet. It's not that when people say, "Oh, the world is an illusion," it's an illusion, but it's fucking there, and we've learned to interact. The Matrix was very real to the people who are in the Matrix. It's that, and the suffering is very real and all that. But so when I say it's not real, it's not what we think it is. Like, it's still happening. Like, you're getting angry and you suddenly realize, oh, I don't really care. It's still happening. It's still a thing that's there. You know, it's not that, oh, this is all really a dream. Even if it is, in your dream, it's still happening and this kind of thing. But it's interesting, though, then, that you have the level of patterns that we have in our lives, that it seems more than random. Because people have, like, definitely you can see patterns in your own life that is not universal in the sense that other people, you're not unique, other people have similar patterns, but that it does seem to be a thing that if you don't get this, it's going to keep going and coming back to you in different ways. And that might be just that you're noticing those things. If it's something that annoys you, then you'll notice it more than something that doesn't annoy you. So them type of things would kind of lead me to believe that there's something behind it all, like some reason for it. And also the idea that if we are nothing more than a collection of other people's ideas, not more than things that we've picked up from other people or books or experience or, all that kind of thing, then it implies that someone had to have the idea first. You know what I mean? So there you can kind of get, I suppose, into the idea of young archetypes, that kind of thing where there's this kind of prime version of anger that, that we kind of copy paste from, and that's been embodied in gods such as Ares or Mars or any of these things. And it's a kind of a way of understanding that kind of possession that can happen to you when when you're very angry and you're not catching yourself. It's like it's someone else. It's like an embodiment of a god or an archetype or whatever. So even if there's nothing behind, if you say there's no I or whatever, someone had to start it. It had to start somewhere. Someone, and I find that interesting. And then that thing as well, if there's nothing, which is kind of going off for a bit, then you can decide to have your own. You can, if all of it's not true, if it's just patterns, loops, and all these things that you've stolen from people, steal better ones. Come up with better things. Tell yourself better stories. But there's a point, I think, in the middle of it where you realise that you're nothing more than loops and recordings or collection of other people's ideas. And before you install new ones, better ones, which is a very chaos magic thing to do, I think you should probably sit in the middle ground and realise that, well, you've come out of one lie, don't jump straight into another lie, and kind of sit in it and kind of see what it is, look into the void for a while before because there's obviously, you have to live in the world and you have to cope with the world, and you build things, and if you can build better strategies, I think you should, but I think you should also have a look at the whole system too.
Do you ever get the feeling, because I get this feeling a lot lately, that like, you can kind of live in your head a lot and think these deep thoughts and about like, wanting to be good, wanting to be the best you can be, not just for yourself, but for the other people in your sphere as well, your kids, your wife, your family, all that kind of stuff. And also wanting to be as good as you can at the kind of things that you're doing, be that your job or your hobby or whatever it is. But like sometimes when I'm queuing in Tesco, I'm just like, why do I bother having these deep thoughts? Like I could just be a lemming like everyone else. Like why?
Sure.
They seem happy. He seems all right. I gotta be like him. Like,
I know, I absolutely know it, but I don't know what the answer is. Well, I do know what the answer is. I can't be like that. That's the answer. I don't know how not to be like that. It's like that whole thing, and I'm sure you've had it the whole life, when you try to talk to people, go, "Oh, you think too much." Well, fuck off. What do you want from me?
What does that mean? You think too much? You breathe too much.
I know. Yeah. You look too much. You hear too much. But I don't. How do I not know how to? Well, I mean. That's why people take drugs, I suppose. But
yeah, but that's not. I mean, I don't think.
Again,
drugs
that's
are
not
grand.
real.
Drugs are grand, but they're not the answer. You know what I mean?
No. Like that. Like kind of. You could take a pill every day. You could take MDMA every day and feel great to a point. I mean, eventually you're going to fall apart. But I mean, you're not solving anything.
No.
You're feeling great for the wrong reasons. Now, in the kind of short term, you probably get a lot done. You probably heal a lot of relationships or whatever. But when you come off it, you kind of have to go back to, shitty Tommy before you did this thing. And that's kind of one of the things, like, I'm very interested in the whole microdosing thing. And of course, there's legalities around that you can talk and I'll talk about. But that would be my fear of microdosing, in that. And it's my fear of antidepressants, and it's my fear of any of these things, is this kind of thing of, well, is it really me? What is it? Am I happy? Or is that just, am I a bit high? Do I no longer care about these things? Or am I a bit high? You know what I mean? But then you have the other end of it of going, well, if I don't exist anyway, and if my brain is not more than a collection of thoughts, and, it's all chemicals, like, it's just, like, is the person who I am now, who is lacking in a certain happy chemical, is that the real me? Am I just not high enough? So it's, just because I'm used to this guy, it doesn't mean. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Think, like, I reckon those answers are all kind of in your own head, though, and you do have to do a lot of really deep, hard thinking to get there. But like, you kind of have to be careful with stuff like that, because poor Nietzsche went mental. He went crazy. Yeah. Carl Jung nearly lost the plot as well.
Yeah, he's talking about holding on to the table and all this, or he loses his mind and all this kind of stuff.
So, like, if you go too far, like, you got to be wary of the beast. But then again, like, I mean, you have, like, you think of, like, who are the best thinkers kind of the last hundreds of years. And like, Einstein used to do this thing where he would put himself into a trance and he would imagine what. That's how he came up with the theory of relativity. He imagines what it was, and then he wrote it down. Like, that's amazing. That's crazy. Yeah. But it's great, and I think that I do actually think that the answers to all of our questions are all in our head. It's just, I think we need to tune ourselves. It's like playing a guitar or something. It's like you just got to tune yourself to the proper tunings, the proper notes, before you can kind of explore that. Like, there's no way.
Are you saying that you have to get on the right vibration, man?
Well, look, whatever helps. Do you know?
Yeah.
No, like, whatever helps. And like, if, like, for example, I went through some therapy as well a couple of years ago, and while I was going through it, I was kind of kicking myself, going, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? I could have sorted so much stuff out. And I said this to the therapist, and she's like, yeah, but 10 years ago you wouldn't have been ready. You wanted to do this when you were ready for it. And so I think that, like, me and you, we have these kind of deep questions. We talk a lot to each other about stuff like this from time to time, and about boobs as well. We're not complete weirdos. But like, I think you just kind of have to be at that stage of kind of where you are in your life, that, okay, well, this is cool and this is happening. Why is that happening? I'd like to know a little bit more about it,
And I
Yeah.
think you have to kind of come to terms with that. You mightn't get the answer. Like, I mean, there's a part of me that's going, "Oh, I will sort this. I will solve this puzzle by the time I die." Probably won't though.
Yeah,
You
probably
know?
won't. But
Yeah.
but then like I have to come back to my old mate Joe Campbell. Then it's the journey. It's not the result. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you won the football match, but like, playing in it was probably better crack than winning it, or than the result. You know what I mean? Okay,
Yeah.
the
Sure.
result, yeah, you won, great, woohoo, I get a
Mm.
medal. But like, yeah, but you scored the goal. That's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
That's more. You get me? Well, it's not more important, but
Yeah.
you get me. You know? Yeah,
But it only relies on the fact that there is an overall competition or a league or whatever. Like the Joseph Campbell thing, in a sense, the hero's journey. If when you die there's nothing, it makes it pointless. So there's a kind of an implication that it's going somewhere, or in a sense. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
there's a lot about Joe Campbell that isn't kind of revealed. He was mad into his Native American stuff,
Yeah.
like really crazy into it, and it doesn't always come through in the book. But I think he was he was balls deep into there. And okay, there are different ones like the Navajos and the Apaches and the Comanches and all that, and they had different afterlife stories and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I reckon he was more into that than kind of the Christian West kind of way of thinking about an
But he
afterlife.
had a Christian Western audience, I suppose. We had to
Yeah, yeah,
bring it
yeah,
right
yeah,
down.
yeah. You know,
The thing
I
I
don't
have
know.
about life after death and all that, I was talking to my therapist today about this. He says it's not that, people go, "Oh, you're just scared of dying and there's nothing there." And I goes, "No, I'm not. I'm not scared of that at all. I'm scared of something being there. That it's like the horror. Like if there's nothing there, well, you won't know about it. That's just
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
There's nothing to worry about. It's a thing. It's what if it's worse? You know what I mean? Like, what if you get there and it's like, "Ah, shit, I'm on this planet to get away from here," or whatever it is. Like, I mean, it's like it's the unknown. Obviously, it's the unknown, but it's the fear of the unknown unknowns because you have no idea. So it's my fear of death is definitely not that it ends. It's mine is that
Mine,
it keeps going. Like,
I used to be really scared of flying. Like I'd have to drink heavily before getting on a plane and stuff. Now I'm fine, but because I just came to realize it was a control thing. Like if I was going to die in a crash like that, it was because I didn't have any control over my own death, And even driving, like I used to freak when I first started driving here in Poland. Poland's one of the, not anymore, but when I moved here, it was the worst in the EU for road accidents. And if
okay,
I was going on a big trip, I wouldn't sleep the night before, which makes it 100 times worse.
sure, sure, yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
so scared. But it was a control thing, and like even like when Aga drives now, the odd time I'm like, oh god, I'd rather drive myself because then I know if it's an accident, at least it's my fault, and I can man up to that and take it on the
yeah,
chin. But that's kind of what it was. Death, whatever, it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I never want to die. I don't want to die. I'd like to,
yeah,
if you gave me a choice now to take a pill and okay, I wouldn't like to be this age forever. I'd go back to being like 25 or something.
yeah.
When I was slimmer and had hair. And then yeah, I mean like, yeah, the whole vampire thing, being immortal. Yeah, fuck it, why not? Like I'd give it a go for a while, and then you can just kill yourself anyway whenever you get bored. I've no interest in dying because there's too much. There's too much to do. There's too many cool things to see and experience, and cool people to meet and do things with. Like just like I couldn't be arsed dying. Like what's the point? Like
Spud, I couldn't be arsed dying.
don't want to. I wanted to keep going, and I don't like that I'm getting older and stuff. Like because it's just like I don't know. Like we're around the same age, and I know that like bending down to tie up your shoelace now, it takes that little fraction of a second longer and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, or
fuck,
it's
fuck.
not even that, but you're aware of it. You're
I
aware
don't
of,
like it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah, but like there's the thing you sent me yesterday, this video of the egg, and
yeah,
I mean, I think that's a very nice kind of romantic idea of what could happen after we die. That we're all just part of this one kind of singularity, and we're all experiencing reality, differently, but. At the end, we're actually just kind of one thing experiencing it differently, which is exactly the same thing as what I just said. But
yeah, but yeah,
I like the idea is that each time you learn something and then you come back and you meet your guardian angel or your god and you talk about what you experienced, what you learned, what you didn't learn, and maybe you want to live that life again. Maybe you want to experience what it's like to have to give hand jobs for $5 worth of heroin. Maybe you're into that, or maybe you want to be a starving child in Africa because you want to understand what horrible pain and stuff is, or else
But
you want to
why?
be
But
an
why?
Irish immigrant in Poland who has a couple of young lads and your life's grand.
Yeah.
you know,
But
I
then,
don't know.
but why? But why? That's
I don't know
the
why.
answer.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
there isn't a why. It's kind of like, why does the dog chase his tail? Because he's an idiot. I don't know.
Well, he chases his tail because he thinks it's external to him. I mean, there's like.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah, he's an idiot. I mean, I understand that it's probably impossible for us to understand the why, or maybe there is no why and all that. But I don't know. I don't know how I don't know how I feel about anything anymore.
I used to like the idea as well that, like, for every time that something is solved in our kind of lives, it opens up. It's like when you open up an
puzzle?
orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like eight
I
other more
exactly feel
ones.
that's exactly how I view the world. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like,
but I like
even
that,
to that
though.
hand action that you did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
literally do that.
See, I
It's
like that though, because then it means
click.
that there's so many. Yeah.
Click, and then here's the next bit. Yeah.
I like that because I think then
But
there's so many.
That seems to be true because I know when I sort out one bit, it affects non kind of related things in my life. Like when I say I sort out a relationship issue with a person, that affects a completely unrelated work kind of thing. As if that's a block, so that's blocking. In a real way, blocking the energy of everything. And when you sort that out, they can come through. But I don't know. That mightn't be.
I think as well though, like the more kind of these kind of little riddles that we solve, I think the kind of easier your life becomes. Like my life's pretty easy now. Like I'm very lucky and very happy where I am. 10 years ago I wasn't. I wasn't. My head was wrecked all the time, just stressed out. I used to wake up at night sweating. Just sweating. I convinced myself I had leukemia and stuff, and I wouldn't go to a doctor. I wouldn't go to a doctor because I was a man and because I was convinced he was going to tell me I was dying, But it was just stress. Like it was stress. Like I was sweating so much from stress. I hated my life. I hated where I was and what I was doing and stuff like that. No, I mean, I don't want to be a moan fest or anything like that, but it's just. And plus as well, like I'm the type of person who needs to think a lot about things to sort them out. I can't have someone tell me, no, you need to sort this out. No, I'm an idiot. I need to. I need to. If I'm hammering in a nail, I need to hit my thumb before I learn how to do it properly, rather than someone show me how to do it. I'm that type of person. But like there are like. Like I look at, say, like my mother-in-law, who like I know doesn't have like any thoughts of this at all, but she has the simplest life of anyone I know, and she's happy as a pig in shit because all through her life she has kind of known, right, well, I'm not going to get involved with that idiot. I'm just going to go down that road and I'm going to be happy. And she's like, I'd love to have that kind of steely determination of just saying, I don't need to think about that for very long. I'm just going to do that. It's like, wow, you're a legend.
Yeah.
Vanessa,
my wife, is the master of that. I always say with people, talking about magic, Vanessa is much better at magic than I am and knows nothing about it. She just has, the kind of, she wouldn't even call it magic, but she like definitely has that kind of thing of, well, I'm not worrying about that. I go, but you have to worry about it. What if we lose that? No, I'm just not worrying about that. And then, when it solves itself, she just goes, well, there's no need to worry about it. I go, don't worry about it.
but man, I'm coming around to that way of thinking though, finally. And I'm just saying, like, actually, that's not important. Like, I was trying to, I was getting a little bit into kind of carpentry there for a while. Well, I still like it. I was making a thing and I was showing you how I was getting along. And I was really annoyed with myself that it was taking so long. Like my daughter was sick and the boy was sick. And then we went to Ireland and it just wasn't getting done. And then I just went, what the fuck is wrong with you? You idiot. It's just a stool. That's all it is. It's grand. You'll make it when you have time. It's okay. I think you just kind of have to learn to let go and just be. But look. To go back to Bernays, like where do we fit into that kind of stuff? Because like we're definitely like you watch ads on telly and you're like, I'm not falling for that. But what ads do I fall for?
Well, that's it. That's my big question, Ed. But what are we falling for? It's very easy to see other people's bubbles, other people's thing, and looking back over things. But it's definitely happening to us now. There's stuff going on that, like, even down to Well, the Apple thing is a perfect example of it. Like, you know, and it's like, even if you're an Android person, it's more because you're not an Apple person. You know what I mean? Like, that's
you can't
the
afford an
decision you've
Apple.
made.
That's what it is.
Oh, fuck Apple. They're shitty anyway. But it's, oh, they are. Like, come on. Everyone knows it, even Apple fanboys. Which is probably the most controversial thing we will ever say on this podcast.
No, but it's stuff like for example, like you use Nikon, don't you? So do I.
I do. Yeah.
Cameras. And I have no idea why. No, I do know why. It's because my wife had a Nikon.
You told me to get the
yeah, it's
Nikon
okay.
camera.
That's why. Yeah, and I only had it because my wife used it, and my brother used them in his like professional job, and now he has Canons as well and whatever. And it's just like why, like how, like you fall into these teams of fucking camera users, like
yeah, but sure,
why? What am I doing?
Teams.
Like, you know,
like what football team do you support? Why is it Liverpool? Is it
Liverpool? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? No, but I know why I support Liverpool, because I was working in a pub which was everyone working there was a Liverpool fan except for one, and it was just like, all right, well, I better join that team.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's such an arbitrary decision, and it's a massive thing in your life now. I assume Liverpool's probably huge, is it for you? Like, or Wolves anyway at different times.
No, well, I mean, I don't care if they lose, but like, I'm lucky that I've been to a couple of Champions League finals and stuff like that. I am very lucky. Yeah. But like, I don't go to matches.
No, but it has impacted your life in a way. But it was just an arbitrary decision that you made. Not arbitrary.
Oh yeah, completely arbitrary. It's just that the pub I was working in at the time, the lads all supported Liverpool, and it was like an unofficial Liverpool supporters club pub.
Yeah,
that was it. So it's kind of peer pressure. You know?
I remember I was a huge football fan, as you may not know. I was a massive Manchester United fan because my dad was a Manchester United fan, and I used to spend an awful lot of time watching Manchester United with my dad, and I got really into it. I used to go to, you know, the pub and watch football on my own and all that. And I was watching the European Cup final one year, and halfway through the first half, and I went, "What am I fucking doing? I don't like football." I have never watched a football match since then. But it was like all of a sudden I went, for fuck's sake.
What am I doing? Like,
yeah, it's like going, what was that about? And it was probably obviously, if you want to look at it, trying to connect with my dad or something like that. But it's like but imagine not realising that. Or what are the things where I haven't realised that, like what's the thoughts, the kind of things where you can't see it as obviously.
Well, I suppose a way of looking at it is like, wait, what have I been buying lately? What do I have? And Aga is a big influence on me over this lately, because she's gone fucking balls deep on fucking minimalism and just like, but I started it a year ago. I watched the documentary by Stacey Dooley about the clothing industry and about cotton, and I haven't bought. No, that's not true. I think in the last year and so many months, I've only bought 2 new pieces of clothing. Everything else is either secondhand or I'm just not buying stuff. Or else it's given to me as birthday presents and all that. And I'm not buying clothes anymore because it's just what it's doing to the environment. Is like, if you think some people become vegan for animal rights and some people do it for environmental issues. And like, if you think it's the farmer's fault that the climate is changing, and you've no fucking idea about the clothing industry, they are far more responsible for anything that's happening in the climate than the poor farmers are. But anyway, so that's one thing. And then there's like, I'm only buying really bare essential things that I need now, so I'm not buying any like doohickey. Like, I used to be mental for little trinkets and just fucking souvenirs and all that kind of, and it's just tat that I don't need. You know what I mean? Like, even though like there's plenty of things, like I was telling you, I want this statue of Radagast.
I
don't need it, but I do want that, and that will make the place.
And it would define you as a person.
Yeah,
this is the type of person I am. It's weird.
It is weird.
I have in some ways really cut down on buying shite when especially with Lidl and Aldi, and you just go, oh, I do need a crep makeup. No, I fucking don't. I'd stop doing that, but I definitely buy books that I'll never read because I want to, and it defines me as a person. But the hope is that I will read them. It's just that it's that thing, you'll never have time or whatever. But it's that balance thing again, though, of like trying to, you don't want to withhold stuff for yourself. You don't want. It's not like the Protestant work ethic of delaying the gratification, or it's pure to suffer to not want these things. I think life can be hard enough. Buy the fucking book. Have the fucking statue. But at the same time, don't buy 20 statues. Don't.
Of course.
Don't get into like the Beanie Baby craze or something like that or whatever. Do if it makes you happy. Do whatever you want. But it's like
Yeah.
trying to, as much as possible, buy stuff because you need it, or
Like-
you actually consciously want it. Not,
Like,
the
what's the, like, I mean, we would be kind of, I suppose we'd be classed under, like, if there's a nerd category or something that Edward Bernays has, we'd be under that. Like, so, like,
sure.
it's probably like, guys in their 30s and 40s who buy Lego and those pop things. What are they called?
Funko Pop. Yeah, I'm one of them.
Funko
Hello.
Pop. You've them, do you?
I do,
So okay, so you are a victim of this then. I haven't bought one of them and I fucking won't.
Well, I
But,
only
like,
started recently buying them. In my defense, is because I used them in a magical sense. I'm using them on
right,
servitors.
yeah, of course,
so-
yeah. That's a bit different then. And then you're
Yeah.
allowed. Then it's used.
I do
or
have
something.
Scooby Doo toys on my window, so there's, I'm not fully immune to it.
There's that thing like about guys buying Lego. Like, you're 40, you don't have children. What are you doing? And it's just like you are a victim of this Edward Bernays on that level. But like, what am
Sure,
I on
yeah.
a level of? You know what I mean? Like, for example, like my wife designs these things here. Yeah, that's one of her designs. And like, anytime we see these things in souvenir shops, we'll buy them because like, wow, cool, that's one of your things. Like, but like, we don't need it. But like, I don't know, Tommy. I really don't know, and I'd love to know, or maybe I'd be horrified if I knew at like what like kind of core level this Bernays and Sigmund Freud stuff really gets me, because it'd be great to kind of unplug yourself from that and just live in the mountains for a while and just away from media, away from the internet, and then come back 6 months later and just be like, whoa, what?
Yeah. Like the alien,
It'd be
like
mad.
the proverbial alien we were talking about.
He'd come back and
I
just
would have
go,
to say the approach would be that most of you is, and me and everyone has fallen for this trick. Or whatever way.
Oh, but sure, that's even a trick of like, I mean, of like, oh, I want to move to Alaska and live in a cabin in the woods. Yeah, there's literally millions of people who want to do that, and there's a whole television industry built on that. It's called a DIY. It's called a DIY network. It's on American cable. It's all it is guys going.
Or the whole thing of climbing Mount Everest, and there's a queue now.
Yeah.
That's the type of. It's like commercialism, capitalism, the modern world, the Western lie, control. Edward Bernays, Jung, Freud. Oh, we didn't even get into Freud's daughter, which was that's a weird story in itself. Or the EST stuff, or the Esalen Institute. I would suggest that everyone should watch this documentary, even though this is not a review of the documentary. But it's like, it should be shown in schools. Definitely, it should be. And well, we're assuming Adam Curtis is honest, and it's an honest portrayal, and it's true. It seems true. It doesn't seem to be anything. I've looked into it further. Doesn't seem to contradict it or anything. But
well, I know he's as a journalist, he's very anti-left. He's pretty much a neocon on his political views and stuff like that. So I don't know how
it seems balanced in his documentaries though. Like I don't get that from Century itself.
Right.
Well, I don't. Do you? Do you get?
No, I didn't get it from these. No. I wonder though. Stuff like this just kind of makes me wonder. Right, what is going to be the end of? What's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back on capitalism and commercialism? Because there's this thing that keeps coming up in the documentary that if we make people happy, or if we make people believe they're happy, then they're docile and they're controllable. But like, where is the point where people don't become controllable? And like, is it going to take a fucking, it's going to be like the French Revolution where the peasants rise up and finally kill their masters? Like that I don't think that can happen, because now the militaries in countries, they're just too strong.
It's probably going to be some sort of natural disaster, some sort of epidemic, some sort of thing where we'll see them. Oh fuck, we're not in control. The authorities aren't the saviors. They aren't, there's no one coming. There's no protectors. No one, and that kind of where the whole facade will fall apart because 98% of people died around you or something like that. That I mean, or something great happens. The Messiah comes down and goes, "Oh lads, don't be at this. Don't be doing that. Just love each other. Just love each other. Put away the Funko Pops. Put away the Lego."
I prefer the second one option there, Tommy. I hope some benevolent alien being comes down and just says, "Lads, I got this. You know.
Well, that is I suppose the thing, like the alien thing. If the aliens did arrive and they're not fucking arseholes, or which of course they are. They are. There's no question of that. There's no way good aliens are coming to visit us. Yes, I'd say something significant like the Messiah, 98% of the population of the world dying, or aliens is the only way we're getting out of capitalism.
Oh,
Maybe.
Christmas thoughts, Christmas cheer.
Yeah. Right, so that's an hour and 10 minutes or so. I think that's satisfying of a podcast. Have you any
I
conclusions?
hope we didn't make anyone sad. And like Tommy says, go and watch it because you'll learn a lot about how you were targeted. You know?
And it gets progressively less depressing in a sense. It gets more, when it gets more up to modern times, it becomes a bit less insidious. Only because it's based on, the bed of lies before it or whatever. But I don't know if there's anything actionable you can do out of it. That's probably the most depressing thing. I think this is just the world we live in. And being aware of it, you still have to engage with it. I don't think there's any getting out of it really. Like, I'd probably not feel guilty about it too, I suppose, because that's kind of, that'll kill you as well at the same time. I don't know.
I wonder what would happen though if like Paris Hilton was to watch this. Someone who's like, balls deep in commercialism. Kim Kardashian.
Well, you have Russell Brand. That's exactly what happened to him. He was the MTV poster boy. The fucking celebrity du jour and all that kind of stuff, and became woke, and no one takes him seriously. So I mean, like Jim
Carrey's the same, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's anti-vax stuff too. Like there's kind
is
of
he?
Well, isn't his wife Jenny McCarthy? It's not who he's married to.
I have no idea.
There's the big anti-vax thing. Maybe I have that wrong, but that's kind of. I'm sure I've seen memes about that. But like no one, like it's looking for a messiah in a human being. It's like looking for the perfect person. Once you get past the fact that he probably has some good things to say. He probably some weird things to say. Like Russell Brand probably some really great things to say. But he's done some. We all have. But I don't think you should then discount the good stuff. Whatever. You are the judge of the good. But that's not to say you should enjoy Hitler's paintings either. Like there has to be something better. You have to have some discernment about these things. But so this will come out tomorrow, so it will be before Christmas for people. But I always hate the thing about when you date things like Christmas, because people will be listening to this in March and going, I don't give a shit about Christmas. It's March. So happy St. Patrick's Day, happy Easter,
happy St. Patrick's Day,
happy summer solstice, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh Jesus, the solstice was on. I really wanted to ask you all the woo stuff about that. We'll have to do that next year.
Yeah, there's no point doing it in the middle of January or whatever.
No.
Right, so bye-bye, Spud. Talk to you soon. Happy Christmas, everyone. Bye.